It all began with a single clip that no one saw coming, a dimly lit video of Mendeecees sitting alone, his voice trembling, his eyes heavy with something that looked like regret. Within minutes of being posted, the internet erupted. Some said he looked broken, others said he looked guilty, but everyone agreed on one thing: whatever was happening behind that camera was far deeper than anyone imagined. The man who once projected confidence now spoke in fragments, his tone soft but loaded with confession-like energy. "I made mistakes," he said, pausing like each word was fighting to escape. "And sometimes you hurt the people you love without realizing how deep the wound goes." The comment section exploded instantly. Fans replayed the clip over and over, dissecting his tone, his facial expressions, even the hesitation between his sentences. Was this a genuine apology to Yandhi, or a vague performance meant to redirect public opinion? The speculation didn't stop there. Every gossip page reposted the video within hours, each adding their own headline: "Mendeecees breaks down over regret," "Emotional confession," or "PR move." Theories multiplied faster than facts, and everyone wanted to decode the message behind his sudden vulnerability. For years, Mendeecees had been seen as calm, even stoic, a man who rarely let the public into his emotions. But this version was different. Eyes red, voice cracking, and posture slouched like the weight of guilt had finally caught up to him. The atmosphere in that short video felt raw and haunting, as if he knew he couldn't run from the truth any longer. Viewers began connecting dots, bringing back old interviews, subtle moments from past seasons, even analyzing body language in clips with Yandhi. Every frame of that confession turned into digital evidence in the court of public opinion. And while his words didn't name names, they didn't have to. The internet already decided who he was talking about. The silence after that video was deafening, yet louder than anything he had ever said before. The confession had cracked open something no one could close again, setting the stage for what would soon become one of the most emotional public unravelings the love and hip-hop world had ever seen. The moment Mendeecees' confession clip hit the internet, the digital world went into absolute chaos. Within hours, every blog, gossip account, and reaction channel had the video on repeat, flooding timelines like wildfire. Twitter Spaces popped up overnight, Reddit threads hit thousands of comments, and fan pages started dissecting each second like detectives, piecing together a crime scene. Hashtags like Mendeecees confession and Yandhi deserves better started trending across platforms. Everyone had an opinion. Some swore it was a man finally taking accountability, while others called it pure manipulation designed to soften his image before the truth came out. Reaction videos poured in, voices filled with disbelief, anger, and curiosity. "Why now?" fans asked repeatedly. "Why speak only after months of silence?" Conspiracy theories began to take shape. Some believed a major media outlet was about to release damaging evidence, and this was his way of controlling the story. Others claimed the clip wasn't leaked at all, that it was a calculated release, filmed, edited, and dropped with strategic timing to stir emotion. Every tiny detail became a clue. The way he exhaled before speaking, the half-lit room that made his expression unreadable, even the choice of background music, faint but emotional, was analyzed frame by frame. Meanwhile, supporters of Yandhi took to her page, flooding her comments with love and prayers, urging her to stay strong. Memes were born overnight, mixing humor with heartbreak, and old interviews resurfaced as people tried to find hints of when the cracks first began. A few loyal fans defended Mendeecees, saying no one should judge a man for expressing remorse publicly, but that didn't stop the flood of criticism, labeling him a master manipulator. The internet had split into two camps, those who saw redemption and those who saw deflection, and as the theories multiplied, the truth only got murky. What began as one emotional video had now turned into a digital storm too big to contain. Screens everywhere flickered with his face, his voice echoing through reactions, remixes, and breakdowns. The confession had escaped his control. The story no longer belonged to Mendeecees, it belonged to the internet. Just when the noise around Mendeecees' confession began to settle, the internet found a new target. Selma, her name, once barely whispered in passing, suddenly dominated every timeline. Old interviews, unseen behind-the-scenes footage, and blurry photos from events resurfaced overnight, painting a picture the public wasn't ready for. Clips of her laughing near Mendeecees during past shoots were now being replayed as evidence, her every smile reinterpreted as a sign of something deeper. Fans who once ignored her presence now examined her every move with forensic precision, while gossip blogs framed her as the mysterious figure at the center of it all. Selma, known for her calm demeanor and quiet charm, became the unwilling face of scandal. Within hours, Her comment sections filled with mixed energy, sympathy from some who called her misunderstood and pure rage from others accusing her of betrayal. Screenshots of her old captions were taken out of context, and every vague quote she'd ever posted was suddenly being decoded for hidden meaning. Did she really say that about Yandy? Was she trying to warn us months ago? The digital courtroom had spoken, and Selma was the prime witness and suspect all at once. Her silence only made things worse. The more she refused to comment, the louder the noise grew. Fans began demanding statements, tagging her in viral posts, urging her to speak her truth. But Selma stayed quiet, her Instagram stories blank. Her profile picture removed, the modern-day version of disappearing in plain sight. That silence became the loudest part of the story. It made people believe she was hiding something, even if she wasn't. Meanwhile, those who knew her personally claimed she was being misunderstood, that the narrative online didn't match the woman behind the camera. But social media doesn't wait for context, it creates its own. And so, every hour that passed without a response became another headline, another theory, another war in the comments. The once private Selma had become a symbol either of forbidden love or unfair judgment, depending on who you asked. By the end of that week, one truth was clear. This wasn't just Mendeecees' confession anymore. It had become Selma's story, too, whether she wanted it or not. While the internet argued, speculated, and tore through every rumor like wildfire, Yandy Smith chose silence. And somehow that silence spoke louder than any statement ever could. No interviews, no cryptic posts, no public tears, just stillness. Her social media remained untouched, her profile frozen in time, while the world around her spiraled into chaos. Fans expected an emotional outburst, or at least a subtle clapback, but what they got instead was restraint. The kind that only comes from someone who's been through storms before, and learned that not every battle deserves an audience. And yet, her absence only fueled the fire. Every minute she stayed quiet, people projected their own interpretations onto her stillness. She's done with him. She's plotting her next move. She's waiting for the right time to speak. The theories never stopped. But through it all, Yandy remained poised, unbothered on the surface, but undoubtedly shaken underneath. Close friends hinted that she was focusing on her children and her peace, choosing prayer over pettiness and healing over headlines. That quiet dignity resonated with millions of women who saw themselves in her position. Blindsided, heartbroken, but refusing to let pain turn them bitter. Supporters began flooding her old posts with love, writing, "We see you, Queen, and silence is power." Meanwhile, gossip accounts tried to bait her into responding, tagging her in every new clip or rumor involving Mendeecees and Selma. But she never took the bait. It was as if she had drawn an invisible boundary between her personal pain and the public circus, daring anyone to cross it. That restraint, that grace under fire, made her even more respected. Yandy's silence became the story. It reminded everyone that not every reaction needs to be loud to be felt. Sometimes the most powerful statement is the one you don't say. Behind the scenes, whispers suggested she had moved out temporarily, focusing on self-care and family while deciding what came next. But to the world, she remained a symbol of quiet strength, the woman who stood tall in the middle of a digital storm, reminding everyone that grace doesn't mean weakness. It means control. It means control. As Yandy's silence continued to dominate headlines, the media storm only grew louder, transforming what started as a private heartbreak into full-blown entertainment. Every gossip outlet, every YouTube commentator, every podcast with a mic wanted a piece of the chaos. Thumbnails screamed with exaggerated titles, "The truth about Yandy and Mendeecees, Selma speaks next." Exclusive receipts coming soon. Even platforms that rarely touched celebrity drama couldn't resist joining in. The internet had turned the couple's pain into prime-time content, and viewers couldn't look away. Prime-time content, and viewers couldn't look away. That's when Tasha K entered the chat. Known for her bold takes and controversial exclusives, she dropped a teaser clip promising to reveal everything the public didn't know. The messages, the photos, the proof. Instantly, social media lit up like a match dropped in gasoline. Comment sections flooded with countdowns to her live premiere, while fans speculated whether Yandy's silence was actually strategy, waiting for the dust to settle before dropping her own truth. But the circus didn't stop there. Erica Mena added fuel to the fire with a few cryptic posts of her own, hinting at women protecting their image while knowing the truth all along. Screenshots spread within seconds, sparking thousands of replies and reactions. Was Erica taking Yandy's side, or subtly shading her? Nobody could tell, and that mystery made it even bigger. Talk shows, gossip blogs, and even fashion pages started weighing in, turning the scandal into a cultural event. Brands quietly distanced themselves from Mendeecees, while Yandy's business pages saw a sudden surge of support from fans choosing to shop in solidarity. Behind the noise, one thing became clear. This was no longer about love or betrayal. It had become a spectacle powered by algorithms where pain turned into profit. Every new rumor meant more clicks, more engagement, and more chaos. Even those trying to stay out of it found themselves dragged in through reposts, tags, and constant updates. The story had taken on a life of its own, spinning faster than anyone could control. And as the circus roared on, one haunting truth hung in the air. Nobody was chasing closure anymore. They were chasing content. After weeks of silence and speculation, Yandy finally decided to speak. Not through a cryptic post or a live rant, but through a calm sit-down interview that felt more like therapy than television. The cameras rolled as she took a deep breath, her eyes glistening but steady, her voice low yet filled with weight. This wasn't a woman seeking sympathy. This was a woman ready to reclaim her voice. She spoke slowly, every word measured, every pause heavy. "I'm not perfect," she began, "but I've always loved with honesty. And when that love is betrayed, you don't just lose a person, you lose a part of yourself." The room fell silent. For the first time, the world saw Yandy not as a reality star, but as a woman navigating heartbreak under a microscope. She didn't name names, didn't curse, didn't expose. She simply told her truth. She talked about learning to smile for cameras while breaking inside, about staying strong for her children when all she wanted to do was disappear. Sometimes, she said softly, the hardest part isn't forgiving them, it's forgiving yourself for staying so long. That line broke the internet. Clips of the interview flooded TikTok, stitched with emotional music and messages of empowerment. Women shared her quotes like gospel, while fans flooded the comments with love and tears. Even those who once doubted her now stood firmly in her corner. The tone of the public shifted overnight. Yandy was no longer the silent wife caught in scandal. She had become the face of resilience. Meanwhile, Mendeecees' name began trending again, this time for all the wrong reasons. His emotional video, once seen as brave, now looked like damage control next to Yandy's raw authenticity. Viewers described her interview as grace under pressure, healing in motion, and the closure she never got but gave herself. For a moment, the noise stopped. The circus quieted, and amid all the chaos, Yandy's calm voice echoed through millions of screens, reminding everyone that strength doesn't always come from fighting back. Sometimes it comes from standing still and telling your truth, even when the world isn't ready to hear it. Just when the internet thought the story had finally reached its emotional peak, the network announced a reunion special titled After the Truth. And overnight, anticipation turned into frenzy. Promos teased a face-to-face encounter between Yandy, Mendeecees, and Selma, the kind of television moment that promised both closure and chaos. As the lights dimmed and cameras rolled, tension filled the air, like static before a storm. Mendeecees sat stiff, visibly uneasy, while Yandy appeared calm but distant, her poise cutting sharper than words. Selma joined via pre-recorded segment, her tone soft but trembling, speaking of regret and misunderstanding a way that only deepened the mystery. When Yandy finally spoke, her voice didn't shake its sword. "You can't rewrite pain with apologies," she said, her eyes locked forward, not at him, but through him. The studio fell silent. Mendeecees tried to explain himself, saying he never meant to hurt her, that the situation had been taken out of proportion, but his words landed hollow. For every sentence he tried to build, Yandy's silence dismantled it completely. The audience, once eager for entertainment, found themselves holding their breath, witnessing a breakup in real time that felt too raw to be scripted. Then came the clip unseen footage showing private conversations that hinted at what really happened. Gasps echoed across the studio as truth and betrayal intertwined on screen. Mendeecees lowered his head, unable to meet Yandy's eyes, while the host shifted uncomfortably, aware that this was no longer a show. It was a reckoning. Even Selma's recorded words seemed to fade in the background as Yandy's quiet composure stole the moment. When the episode aired, social media exploded again, but this time, the tone was different. Fans didn't see gossip. They saw heartbreak, accountability, and the painful beauty of closure. Memes gave way to reflection. Hashtags changed from "your drama alert" to "the respect Yandy," that reunion special didn't just end a chapter, it rewrote the entire story. By the time the credits rolled, it wasn't about who lied or who stayed. It was about a woman who faced her pain on national television and walked away with her dignity intact. When the reunion special aired, the internet erupted once again. But this time the reaction was swift and decisive. The court of public opinion had reached its verdict, and Mendeecees was the one on trial. Within hours, clips from the show dominated every feed, and fans flooded the comments with outrage, empathy, and disbelief. "You can't play victim after years of deception," one user wrote, while another said, "Yandi didn't lose a man, she lost a burden." Hashtags like "SheTeam Yandandi Forever" and "Accountability Matters" trended across platforms. While brands that once featured Mendeecees quietly removed his photos from their pages, sponsors backed out of upcoming deals. Event appearances were cancelled, and the same media that once celebrated him now turned critical. His silence, once perceived as strength, began to feel like avoidance. Meanwhile, Yandi's interview clips continued to circulate, now used in motivational edits, podcasts, and reels about healing and even celebrities joined the conversation, posting messages of support, calling her the definition of grace under pressure. On the other hand, Selma faced her own wave of scrutiny. Not just for her alleged involvement, but for remaining silent while chaos burned around her. Some viewers demanded accountability, others pied her as another casualty in the storm, but the damage was already done. What had started as a moment of truth had now evolved into a complete reputation collapse. Mendeecees tried to post a statement days later, but it only made things worse. His words, "I never meant to hurt anyone," were met with sarcasm, disbelief, and exhaustion. The public had moved on, emotionally drained from the endless cycle of confession and denial. For the first time in years, the couple who once represented love, loyalty, and power on reality TV had become a cautionary tale about fame, pride, and consequence. Behind the glamour and headlines, real people were breaking, and the world was watching, entertained but unsettled. What no one expected, though, was how the fallout would transform Yandi, because while the internet tore him apart, she quietly rebuilt herself, not through drama, but through dignity. Weeks passed after the storm, and first time in what felt like forever, silence filled the timeline. The noise had faded, the hashtags cooled, and what remained was reflection. Mendeecees disappeared from the public eye, his once busy social media now eerily quiet. Some said he'd left the city to focus on his mental health. Others believed he was quietly trying to rebuild what fame had destroyed. In that silence, he began to face himself. No cameras, no audience, just truth. Those close to him described a man finally realizing that accountability isn't something you post, it's something you live. Meanwhile, Yandi began to rise again, not through interviews or revenge, but through purpose. She poured her energy into her businesses, community work, and family, transforming pain into progress. Her glow returned. Not the kind that comes from makeup or filters, but the kind that only comes from peace. Supporters called her the Phoenix, rising from the ashes of betrayal, with a smile that said, "I survived." Even her silence now carried warmth instead of tension. As for Selma, she faded into the background, deleting her socials and stepping away from the spotlight. There were whispers that she had moved out of state, seeking peace of her own, far from the chaos that had consumed her life. And maybe that was the quiet truth of it all, that everyone involved needed to vanish to truly heal. The internet moved on to the next scandal, but those who followed the story from the start knew it had left a mark. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It was a mirror reflecting the cost of public love, private mistakes, and human imperfection. In a world that thrives on exposure, redemption often hides in the shadows. And that's exactly where Yandi Mendeecees and Selma now found themselves. Not enemies, not victims, just people trying to start Mendeecees over in the aftermath of a storm that showed the world too much. Forgiveness didn't come from headlines or comments. It came from acceptance. And maybe that was the real ending no one saw coming. Time moved on, but the echoes of that story never truly faded. Months later, when fans revisited the clips, the interviews, and the emotional breakdowns, they found themselves still asking the same haunting question: what was real, and what was performance? Yandi's quiet strength became her legacy, her silence now a symbol of survival in a world that devours vulnerability. She had learned to live without needing validation, her peace no longer dependent on apologies that would never come. Mendeecees, on the other hand, remained a shadow of his former self, occasionally spotted but never truly seen. His confession, once viral, now lived like an unfinished sentence. Powerful but incomplete. Some said he had changed, others doubted it, but everyone agreed that fame had stripped away whatever mask he once wore. Selma, too, disappeared into obscurity, her name now spoken only in whispers, as if saying it too loudly might reopen old wounds. The world had moved on, but the story left behind something unforgettable, a lesson in love, ego, and the price of public vulnerability. For all the laughter, the heartbreak, and the chaos, one truth stood clear: nobody walks away from fame untouched. It exposes, it magnifies, it turns private moments into public trials, and when the lights finally dim, you're left alone with your choices. In the end, Yandi didn't win by proving anything, she won by walking away. She reminded everyone watching that dignity isn't loud, and closure doesn't always come from answers. Sometimes it comes from peace. As her last words from that final interview replayed across social media, some stories don't end with blame. They end with understanding. Viewers found themselves reflecting on their own definitions of love and loyalty. The screen fades to black. The music softens, and a single question lingers in the silence. Did truth really set them free? Or did it destroy them in the process? No one knows for sure. All that remains is the echo of a confession that changed everything, and the haunting reminder that in the age of social media, every truth comes with a price.